Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of the Pangolin Podcast. I'm your host, Toby Jermyn. Thank you very much for joining me. In each episode, I've invited a professional wildlife photographer to imagine themselves in a remote location. And along with their camera gear, they're allowed to bring 5 photographs to hang on the wall of their humble dwelling. Now, 4 of these must be their own, and the final image is one they admire by another photographer. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the images as we talk, but for audio listeners on other platforms, there is a link in the description to a gallery. On today's show,
it's also about how bad do you want it. So I run and I go to the gym. I don't have a six-pack. I can't run a marathon under 3 hours, but I could if I tried hard enough. But how bad do I want it? It's not going to fall in your lap, but if you want it, you can go and get it. You can become a world famous wildlife photographer. But hey, you're gonna have to put in the hours for sure.
My guest today is a South African wildlife photographer, safari guide, and educator, best known for making the African bush accessible and exciting to a broad audience. With a formal background in nature conservation and years of experience guiding guests in some of Southern Africa's top reserves, he combines scientific insight with a storyteller's eye behind the camera. Through his brand, The Safari Expert, his YouTube videos and social content help travelers and photographers understand animal behavior, improve their images, and fall in love with the day-to-day reality of life in the bush. Welcome to the show, Villiers Steyn.
Hey, Toby, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time. We've known each other for a while, so it's about time we had you on the show, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and I've really enjoyed this series very, very much, and I see the viewers have enjoyed it as much as well. And kudos from my side, what you guys have been able to do with your own YouTube channel. I see you're on 111,000 subscribers as we talk right now and counting.
It's absolutely extraordinary. You know, we started doing this because of COVID. So I always like to look back on COVID with these big Elton John rose-tinted glasses and go, well, it might have been a tricky time, but at least we had time to grow our audience. So very, very cool. Villiers, the premise of the show is that you've got to go and select 4 images of your own. Now, I know you've got a really big portfolio of images. How difficult or easy was it to choose the images for the show?
I'm so glad you asked that question because I wanted to say thank you very much for costing me 2 or 3 days in the office going through hundreds of thousands of images. And I suppose the difficulty is it's not just about an image that looks nice. It's about finding images that really speak to me personally. And that's exactly what I did. I went through and I narrowed it down to first about 20, and then I narrowed that down to 5, and eventually I chose my 4. And I'll be honest with you, I actually changed it up a couple of times as well. So the short answer is it was extremely difficult. But can I just say, the most difficult part was actually finding the 5th photograph, which is from another wildlife photographer, because that meant spending ages going through my favorite wildlife photographers' Insta pages to try and find something that really stands out.
And the big problem is, I hope you don't mind me telling everyone where you live, but you live in Hoedspruit, which has a ratio of like 1-to-1 non-photographers to photographers. It's got the highest density of wildlife photographers. Now, that we're not going to divulge whose image you chose, but that could be socially rather awkward, couldn't it, if you chose one and not any of the others?
We always joke that we can make our own football team with wildlife photographers here in the wildlife estate, and everybody could get injured and we'll still have enough subs as well. It really is a fantastic community of wildlife photographers. And I think I was one of the first to move out here to Hoedspruit. I've been here now for 12 years. The town was still very underdeveloped when I moved here. But now it's a different beast altogether. And we actually bump into each other less frequently than you may think because all of us travel so frequently.
It's a lovely part of the world. If anyone's going on safari through the Greater Kruger area, pop into Hoedspruit and you're going to run into at least 8 people who've been on this podcast so far. There we go. This is why I go to Hoedspruit, is to go and find new people to be on the podcast. That's why I go there. All right.
I love it.
So, Villiers, let's start with your first image, shall we? Tell us a little bit about this. Oh, it's a stunning image. Tell us about how did this happen? What is it?
So my first image is a photograph of a herd of elephants drinking under the Milky Way. And as someone that leads a lot of photographic safaris, you're very often with clients and you photograph things in the moment, and hence it's very hard to actually conceptualize any shots. You kind of see something happening and you try your level best to take a good photograph of that. But in that sort of first phase after COVID, where there were no safaris going for a very long time, I had the luxury to actually conceptualize a few shots. And a good friend of mine, Ian Outram, owns a lodge called Antares Bush Camp, which is about an hour's drive north here from Hoedspruit. And when he converted his camp from an old guides training camp to a self-catering lodge, he had the wonderful idea of building an underground hide there. And he invited me for coffee and he said, Villiers, would you help me sort of put this hide together so that wildlife photographers can get something really, really special? And as you can see in the photograph, luckily, the hide faces south-southwest. And that means in the winter months, you can get the Milky Way in the photograph. So basically, I realized that there's an opportunity to capture a herd of elephants drinking under the Milky Way. I'll stop there for now, but that was where I conceptualized the shot, but it took quite a while to get it.
So are you able to spend the night there? Did you spend overnight there, or is it just you went in the evening time?
You say a night. Nights. Many nights. Many nights. I grew old in that hide. No, basically what happened was I was lucky enough to go through and make a YouTube video about the lodge when it first opened. I was the first guest that they had in there, and I made a video for the Safari Expert YouTube channel. And on the very first night, a male lion came to drink, and I managed to capture it under the Milky Way. But what I immediately realized was that the lion was extremely small in the image, as you can imagine, because you're so wide. So yes, you can overnight in the hide, but it's maybe not quite what you imagine, because the waterhole is right next to the camp. It's walking distance from your room and your toilet and the kitchen. But within the hide, there's a day bed that you can sleep on if you do get tired. But I basically, when I got that lion shot, I realized that there's an opportunity to get something much more special.
So talk me through. So this is a very technical photograph, because obviously you've got to expose long enough for the Milky Way, but then you don't want to expose too long because then the elephants are going to be blurry. So talk us through how you did this.
Well, I suppose that's what made the shot so difficult, because it's not just about pointing your camera in the right direction and hoping for a herd of elephants to come around. The first and most important thing was to choose the right lens, which in this case was a 16 millimeter wide angle lens. And I was very worried about getting focus issues on the elephants itself. So when I conceptualized this composition with that tree in the top left and how much of the water I wanted in, I actually set up the camera during daytime hours so that I could pre-focus on the edge of the water on the far side, switch the lens to manual mode, and from there on, I'm using a remote trigger to trigger the shots throughout the night. But as you correctly say, the big issue is that you need about 30 seconds to expose the Milky Way. But if you do that with those elephants, you're going to completely blow them out with the floodlights from the hide itself. So what I ended up doing was, it is a composite shot or a multiple exposure shot, but I didn't want to take the two photographs far apart. In fact, I wanted to take them exactly consecutively. One moment the stars and the next moment the elephants. So I made sure that I was in the hide the right time of the year, which ended up being September 2021, where I knew the Milky Way would sit at that beautiful diagonal angle, come 11 o'clock at night or whatever it might be. And that's when you then hope that the elephants are going to arrive. And on this night, they did. So I heard the elephants coming from behind the hide. My camera was set to manual mode. ISO was at 6400 so I can expose the stars. 30-second exposure at the smallest F value, largest aperture, which was f4. And as I heard the elephants approaching, I took my Milky Way shots. Took a couple of shots, just double-checked. Wow, looks amazing. And this was obviously taken with the floodlights switched off so that the stars could expose nicely. Next second, the elephants arrived. I waited for all of them to then stand around there. But now I was very worried about the exposure issues, that I actually decided to, instead of taking it at a much faster shutter speed or using a flashlight or something like that, I decided to just flick the hide light on and off. So I would do a longish exposure, and then I would just flick the hide light for a millisecond to expose elephants. And I just did that over and over and over until I got a selection of shots where the elephants are more or less frozen like this. And then obviously after that, I blended them in Photoshop to create this composite shot. But I can truthfully say to you, when I sat there, this is what my eyes saw, bar maybe a little bit of bringing out the Milky Way.
I think it's super cool. So you've got one hand on the light switch, one hand on the cable release. You trying to do them at the same time or something like that?
So essentially what I did was, with a long exposure shot, I still left it at a few seconds to give me enough time to go to the switch and then flick it over, because if the switch was actually at the door. I know there'll be a lot of professional photographers that say to me, Villiers, you did it the hard way. But to be honest with you, this is not my forte. I was just a guy that was trying something new. But I must say, it's one of my favorite photographs, and one that I know a lot of people have gone back there to try and recreate.
This is what I really enjoy about you and your content is you're not trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. You're very transparent about what you're trying to do, the challenges that you faced. And I love the fact that you are so open and honest about this is a composite. I was using the light from the hide. But that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think the thing is what you need to do is, as a photographer, is you first need to figure out what it is that you want to create. And then the creative juices can start flowing as to how you're actually going to do it, whether it's finding a unique location or finding a creative way to create light or an angle, or for the animal not to be scared of your presence or whatever it might be. But that's literally half the fun for me.
So was this, you mentioned now, this is 2021. I can't remember when you started the Safari Expert. Was this Safari Expert that you were making the video for?
Believe it or not, I've actually had the channel now for nearly 6 years, Toby. I too started it during lockdown, but the idea actually came in late 2019. If I can be sort of a little bit vulnerable, I was completely burnt out from leading safaris. Like a lot of us do, we do too much. And I was on the road constantly. I wasn't seeing my wife, Tabby, enough. And I was experiencing mega burnout. And I sat down with her one day and I said, listen, I think I need a little bit of a break. But the big question then is, what do you do? And suddenly COVID hit, and it hit after I had already literally opened the channel, but I hadn't posted much. In fact, I think I've literally just posted a welcome video or something like that. And lo and behold, lockdown happens. And the videos that actually gave my channel a big boost was I decided to make a 10-day series bird call challenge, with 5 easy calls, 5 medium calls, and 5 hard calls, giving you a grand total of 150 bird calls with no context, just the sound. And to the day, I promise you, I stop at Eastgate Airport, a young guide from Kapama or one of the lodges will walk over and say, hey, Villiers, thank you. You taught me my bird sounds. So that's kind of Brilliant. Where it all started. But yes, now that I am earning a little bit more money through YouTube, I also have the luxury of spending more time on it. And I really now see myself as a full-time YouTuber.
Right. Well, before we keep getting carried away with the first image, I think we need to move on to your second image. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a two-parter. Okay. Tell us about this image.
So the second image is of a adult female tigress walking through just a proper Indian jungle. Wide shot, going through this beautiful little rocky stream with the massive trees above it. And I'll be honest in saying that this is my favorite shot of the 4, of the ones, of my own ones. And I went to India for the first time in November 2018 to lead a photographic safari. It was a little bit more of a site visit, but we did take a few guests. And we went to Ranthambore in the north of India. And I had obviously watched a ton of YouTube videos to get an idea of what I might expect. And what captured me most about watching those videos were actually the sounds of peacock and the alarm calls of the deer in the forest that's so much more higher pitched than our African antelope. And when I set off, basically, I said to myself, I cannot come back without capturing what I would only describe as the Jungle Book. And this image for me did that.
It's a really lovely and emotive image. And we see a lot of close-ups of tigers. Often they're in challenging surroundings and thick bush and things like that. So when you saw this with this fantastic natural frame walking across perfect negative space, you must have thought, well, there we go. I've done it. Now I just got to take the photograph.
People will look at this shot and think, how on earth were you in that exact right position when that happened? But to give you an idea of what did actually happen there is the zone that we were photographing in the Ranthambore. And for those of you that don't know, the park and many of the parks in India are designed in different zones, and you've got to stick to a specific zone. This zone is very hilly, and a lot of the roads will take you down through these gullies. So we were parked on a road that crosses this rocky stream. And then you can obviously look up and down it, much like you would a dry riverbed if you're driving anywhere here in Africa. And we had come down this specific gully, looked up and down, didn't see anything, went past, turned around in the cul-de-sac and then came back up. And then once we got to the top, we bumped into this beautiful tigress, and she was slowly making her way in that direction. And that's when I said to our guide, listen, if you think she's going to take a path that leads her through that, it looked quite special. Can we go and park and wait for her at the bottom? So by the time that she walked out from the undergrowth, we had been parked there for probably 10 minutes or so. I knew exactly what the shot was going to look like. I knew that I wanted that big branch at the top in it. I wanted a little bit of the water in it. And I was obviously going to get a rule of thirds, bottom right, walking into the frame. And then I just shot away like a madman so that I could get that foot beautifully lifting towards the front. And I think what I like about this shot, it's proof to people who are still doubters of India that you can have a really wild Indian experience with these fantastic photographic opportunities. And I know a lot of people, they're scared to go to India and they think it's a zoo. And I can honestly say from my side, I've been to India 5 times now. I'm going back in March again next year. It is one of the most incredible and enjoyable wildlife experiences that you can have as a wildlife photographer.
I really liked that you mentioned it. That's what made it feel so familiar when I saw this image, because it is a little bit like that iconic dry riverbed that you get, especially around the Sabi Sands and places like that. There was something about it. Look, it's a really, really stunning image. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at Villiers' third image. But before I do that, if you are enjoying this series, if you're enjoying these sorts of chats, please give us a thumbs up, give us a comment down in the comments down below. If you're listening to the podcast on, say, Apple Music or Spotify, please also do the same and give us a like or a star rating or a comment as well, because the algorithm will appreciate that. Thank you very much. Right, we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the second part of the Pangolin Podcast with my guest today, Villiers Steyn, and we have reached the third image. So, Villiers, would you like to explain what's going on and why did you choose this image?
So this is a vertical image of an elephant trunk, beautifully curved around, holding a bunch of yellow flowers. And it was photographed in Mashatu Game Reserve in February 2022, I think it was, whilst leading a photographic safari. And this shot just makes me happy when I look at it.
I know these flowers because, Mashatu's in Botswana. We have them up in the Chobe at a certain time of year. And it's extraordinary, the transformation that happens from the brown, dusty, twiggy Chobe at the end of winter. And then suddenly this life and these flowers. It's just like a carpet. It's quite extraordinary. It's usually Jan, Feb, isn't it? You get these flowers.
So over the last 8 years or so that I've been going regularly in the rainy season to Mashatu specifically, Valentine's Day has been the knot I make in my ear. It's like mid-February has been the highest hit rate. But having said that, it's only when the area receives prolonged good rains that these devil thorn flowers actually come out. But it's important to mention that that's completely unpredictable. And secondly, if it keeps raining, the flowers actually get almost swallowed by the bush itself. And if it doesn't rain, they wilt. So there's typically about 2 weeks a year that it looks as beautiful as this. And you were also right when you said it carpets the land. It literally is like someone has spread custard over the fields, and every animal from an elephant and a cheetah to a bat-eared fox and a giraffe walks through it, and it's magic.
There we go. It's not green season anymore. It's now custard season. I'm glad you're using such, excuse the pun, flowery language, because the way you describe things is very artistic, very descriptive. You've got a background in travel writing, don't you, as well?
That's 100% right. I actually started my photographic journey, at least wildlife photography journey in Mashatu specifically. I did my master's degree on leopard movements in Mashatu Game Reserve itself. And that's where I first saw these flowers and fell in love with this area. But when my research permit expired and I had to leave the country and come back to South Africa, I was a young, 26-year-old, a little bit unsure what to do, and decided I would give travel writing a go. And for about 8 years, I basically lived out of my Toyota Hilux and visited different national parks and game reserves in Southern Africa to share the beauty of African game reserves and parks, not so much featuring on the lodges, but slightly more on camping and budget options. And it's only after that I got into serious wildlife photography and photographic guiding. But fast forward 10 years and now I'm a YouTuber. I think to myself, the videos that I make now, part of my aim is to entertain, but there's definitely an education element as well. And when I put a video together for the Safari Expert YouTube channel, it's basically the video version of what I would write a travel article in those days. 50% entertainment, the nice story, the feels and all that, but a nice fat travel planner at the end telling you what time of the year to go, what gear to take with, and what you can expect to see.
Now, for those of you who are not aware of the Safari Expert, we'll leave a link in the description down below so you can follow Villiers' amazing channel. And we also, I suppose we can let everybody know, because now we've booked it in, Villiers is coming to the Chobe with a whole load of other creators as well to come and make some videos. Villiers, tell them who you're bringing with you to the Chobe.
Oh my goodness, Toby, you have no idea how excited I am about this. It's very seldom that I want to fast forward 6 months, and I'm actually going back to Mashatu in February, India in March, and I'm actually already looking forward to May. So basically, after seeing Toby in Hoedspruit a little while ago, we started chatting about the amazing new solar Pangolin Voyager houseboat, and we realized we just have to come and make some content on it. So it will be myself, obviously, is representing the Safari Expert YouTube channel. And then my good friend, Mark Dumbleton, who lives just around the corner, he plays left wing for the Hoedspruit Wildlife Photography football team. He'll be joining us as well. My good mate and just absolutely video making genius, storytelling genius, Byron Grobler from the Wild Wild Journeys channel, who will be joining us as well with his girlfriend, Kaylee. And then also Richard van Hacht as well. The four of us will come and spend, 3 magical days on the boat, on the river, and then a couple of days in the hotel as well, and really try our level best to do justice to what I think is one of the best products in all of Africa for people that want to come on safari. And I mean
want to say that, but that's not a sponsored post. That was not prompted, but thank you very much. Appreciate it. I really do. We're really looking forward to hosting you up there as well. I'm going to see if I can be there at the same time. I'm not sure, but we'll see if we can come up with a plan. Okay. We are now going to move on to the fourth image. So please, can you describe this image, why you chose it?
This is let's be honest, a much more average photograph of a male wattled starling sitting on top of a bush with a blue sky behind it, and it's shouting its lungs out. And you might be asking yourself, how on earth did this image make it into 4 that you might want to take with you? And it actually is, for me, the most personal story in my whole wildlife photography career. When I was I think I was 7 or 8 years old, my family, we used to do our July school holidays in Zimbabwe, visiting different friends in different areas. And this specific year, we were in Hwange National Park, as we often do. And my dad always makes friends with everybody. If there's a moving body in camp, my dad, by the end of day 1, he'll know their first names and we'll be invited over for a braai, which is exactly what happened this evening. And as we're sitting there having a braai with our new neighbors in the chalet next to us, the gentleman comes out with, you remember, Toby, the old days when we still use film? A big old, a big old album, proper old school photo album. And he opened it up and he started paging through it to show us some photos of their adventures. As I sat there as a young boy, eyes as big as this, watching this gentleman paging through it, it was wildlife photo after wildlife photo after wildlife photo. And as he paged through, I spotted a photograph of a male wattled starling. And something that only a few people might know about me is I am absolutely obsessed with birds. I'm not a twitcher. I don't have a life list. But I remember as a small boy paging through the book, the wattled starling to me looked unreal. I thought to myself, how can this bird have this yellow mask and this funny black thing hanging from the bottom? It must be wrong. This thing can't exist. And I promise you, Toby, I was hooked. There and then, the seed was planted to become a wildlife photographer, even though it took years and years and years for everything to come together. And to actually fill in a little bit of the gap, I ended up being our high school photographer. I photographed the rugby and netball and group photos and stuff like that. But it wasn't, and I wrote it down here, it wasn't until February 2023 in Mashatu again, in green season, that I photographed my first male wattled starling with a wattle. And it's full circle. It took that long for me to actually get the shot that got me into wildlife photography in the first place.
So this is your wattle starling is your gateway bird. This is the one that
Absolutely.
got you hooked right at the beginning. It'll be your totem. There we go.
Isn't it wonderful now that every time I see a wattled starling, and especially a male, it takes me back to my childhood dreaming about becoming a wildlife photographer. And that's why it is maybe not my favorite photo, but definitely the most special one of the four.
I have a theory that, you get people arriving on safari and you say, right, who wants to photograph birds? They're like, no, I don't want to photograph birds. I'm not into bird photography. And it's because people don't know birds. But my theory is that there's a very quick tipping point. If you can teach anybody 10 birds, they become a birder. Because once they know 10, then they say, I want 11. Now I want 12. Now I know you don't have a life list, but in their mind, as soon as you get people remembering birds, it's very easy. Let me ask you this question. Is there a bird that you want to photograph that you haven't seen or got a decent photograph of? What's your bogey bird? Which is the one that never always gets away or you haven't seen yet?
It's so interesting you actually ask that, because on my YouTube channel, I'm about to launch a brand new series that I call Beyond the Bucket. And I kind of conceptualized it from a selfish point where I thought to myself, right, we have these big bucket lists of going to world famous national parks and we want to photograph jaguars in the Pantanal or maybe an elephant below Kilimanjaro. But I thought to myself, what are the little things that I've dreamed of doing? What is that bird that I've never photographed that I want to go and spend time doing? And there are two birds that I would love to take a photo of. The first is the bearded vulture, and that will most certainly feature in that series. But the one that I think that would most like to get a good photo of, and I know it's going to be a good challenge, is a gorgeous bushshrike. Because much like seeing the wattled starling and thinking that thing's not real, the gorgeous bushshrike, I mean, let's be honest, that was painted by a 5-year-old. It can't be real.
The problem is now you're going to post that somewhere on social media and someone's going to accuse you of it being AI generated or something like that.
Yeah, I know, right? There's a discussion for another day, right?
There we go. Well, then we can, no. Let's not get distracted. So going back to your dream to become a wildlife photographer and your success in turning it into a career, what advice have you got for somebody watching this who goes, I want to do that?
So I get asked this a lot by youngsters who will send me DMs on Instagram. Sometimes they reach out via email saying, yo, Villiers, I love your work. How did you do it? Is it even viable for me as a youngster to consider this? My parents want me to go and do X, Y, and Z. Should I do it? I will always say, yes, it is worth it, because I am a believer in following your dreams and your passion. But the harsh reality is that it's not easy. And the main reason for that is, and maybe it's become a little bit of a cliche, but the photo has lost its value. A wildlife photograph is not worth as much as it was when I was still a travel writer. I could get paid good money if I get a photo of a lion on the cover of Travel Africa or something like that. Whereas these days, because every second person has the ability and the equipment and great tutors like yourself and Charles and Sabine and everybody that help people so much to take great photographs, and then those photos make it onto the market out there. And so the value of the photo is low. And all that means is that you have to diversify your skills as a wildlife photographer and offer different services and products that help you supplement your income. So I actually jotted it down the other day, and now I've got about 12 different streams of income that's wildlife photography or videography related. So whether that's selling a photograph or a video clip as stock, or having an online course or an ebook that you sell, or maybe a podcast. So there are so many different ways that you can supplement your income as a wildlife photographer, but it's very, very hard You can't just be out there driving around in the Kruger National Park photographing animals and think that you're easily going to make a living. But 100%, if you're a go-getter and you're an entrepreneur and you're willing to teach yourself and also ask help from others, you 100% can make a living as a wildlife photographer.
You just got to find the time to fit it all in. I mean, it can be exhausting. It can be a strain on relationships as well when you're disappearing off and your partner can't travel, because they've got a real job. It's a commitment. And if you commit to it, you can do it. I think that social media now and YouTube, they have leveled the playing field, allowing you to access other people. It's not just, when we talked before about stock photography, there was a handful of people who would have relationships with the media, and they were the ones making all the money. So there is this it's become slightly more egalitarian, but at the same time, it's become a bit more congested.
Now, more so than ever, we have the world audience. We have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have TikTok. And I always say to people with photography, no one's ever going to ask you what you studied. It's about what you put out there. So your portfolio and the way that you conduct yourself on these platforms is everything. So I would always say to these youngsters, up your skill level, become as good as you possibly can, strive to be better, and just put the best out there. And who knows where the next big break might come from. There are more opportunities now as a wildlife photographer than there were 5 or 10 years ago. I can say that with absolute certainty.
And I would say to anybody wanting to get into this, share everything. Tell everybody what you're doing, because there is no real intellectual property. If you come across something which is going to change somebody else's photographic mindset, share it. Don't try and keep it to yourself, because somebody else will share it. Then at least be the first person to share it.
Yeah. Well, Toby, here's another thing. It was funny. I was thinking about it the other day when I was going for a run. It's also about how bad do you want it? So I run and I go to the gym. I don't have a six-pack. I can't run a marathon under 3 hours, but I could if I tried hard enough. But how bad do I want it? I don't want those things that bad, but I have 50,000 YouTube subscribers. I want it that badly. So that's where all my effort and my energy goes into. So it really is, to a very large degree, is about how bad do you want it? Just, it's not going to fall in your lap, but if you want it, you can go and get it. You can become a world famous wildlife photographer. But hey, you're gonna have to put in the hours for sure.
Like everything, was it 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours? I don't know what it is, but it feels like 10,000 hours when you're making YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Okay, we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, Villiers is going to share with us the image taken by another photographer that maybe he wishes he'd taken himself. So we'll be right back in a second. Welcome back to the final part of the Pangolin Podcast with my guest today, Villiers Steyn from the Safari Expert channel. Now, this is the part of the show where we have asked Villiers to share an image taken by another photographer that he wishes he had taken himself. So we're going to reveal the image. Villiers, tell us about this image.
This is an amazing wide shot of a jaguar lying in a tree with the water below and I'm assuming it's the rising sun, could be the setting sun, but it's backlit in the Pantanal, photographed by your very own Sabine Stols. And like I said to you, this one was the hardest one to select of the 5.
I can only imagine. We should ask you to do a list of all the ones you rejected to choose Sabine, and then she'll be very happy. This was taken very recently. This was only in August they were in the Pantanal. Now, you've mentioned before the Pantanal is on your list. Have you got plans to go there?
Well, so it's not in the schedule at this stage. You know, the Pantanal, it's obviously hard to reach. It's quite a mission to get there. And typically to these kind of destinations in the past, I've only gotten there leading photographic safaris. But now that I'm leading less and making more YouTube videos, I either need to get sponsors or you need to get the people on the other side on board to host you with the hope that the content you create, will bring them some business. And I haven't been able to crack that one for the Pantanal just yet, but I'm also one of those people that believe these kind of things organically play themselves out. And much like I watched those YouTube videos about the tigers and eventually got my Jungle Book experience, and now I've been there multiple times, I know that will happen for the jaguars. And that's exactly part of the reason why I watched the review that Sabine did. It was literally just me sitting there living vicariously through your YouTube channel. So when you first invited me to come on the podcast, I thought to myself, I really want to take this seriously. And to do that, to actually find that one photograph taken by someone else, something that I don't necessarily have an emotional connection with, that photo really, really has to speak to me. So then started this crazy scrolling through Instagram accounts of various different wildlife photographers. But on this specific day, I was watching Sabine doing the review about the Pantanal, and I kind of really liked the way that they did it, staying on the houseboat and then, being a little bit deeper along the river so that you could get these early morning shots. And I remember her filming this scene, and I just thinking to myself, holy smokes, that is what I want to experience in the Pantanal. And what I just love about this shot is the light is just exquisite. That sun coming from the back. And I love seeing the reflection of the sun on the water. It looks like it's a river of gold, and it's got the most lush green in the foreground. And at some stage, the river was so high that some of the vegetation got stuck on the tree there. So it also gives you a little bit of thinking about what the water levels in the Pantanal does. And then, of course, the rule of thirds with where exactly this animal is. And just the fact that he or she has its paw up on the branch. I mean, it couldn't have lay in a better position. Again, is it AI? Is it not AI? Who knows? It is.
Don't tell anyone.
It is the most exquisite big cat photograph I've seen in a very long time.
The secret to this is we have, and I'll let you know who it is. I'm not going to broadcast. We've got the most amazing South American ground handler who knows all the little nuances, the right places to be at the right time and things like that, worth his weight in gold. So if you ever go there, I will introduce you to him and you can go there with him and he'll take care of you.
People are going to think you got me on the show to promote Pangolin photo safaris. And I promise you that was not that certainly wasn't the intention. But honestly, I can say, hand on my heart, I went through so many different photographers and I went a few circles around and I just couldn't get this photograph out of my mind. And I'm looking forward to actually seeing Sabine. Maybe it'll even be next year when I'm in the Toby and actually saying that to her in person. But it's an amazing shot. And if I were her, I'd have it the size of a bus on my wall and I'd be very proud.
Yeah, I'm sure that she will. I think she'll be delighted that you chose it. Villiers, I'm afraid we've run out of time. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for all the very lovely words you've had to say about Pangolin Photo Safaris. I cannot wait for you to experience the new houseboat. But before you go, we have to ask the one question. The premise of the show is that you're going to go and live in a humble dwelling where you're going to go and have these images hanging on your wall, but you get to choose where the humble dwelling is. So where are you going to be living and photographing in perpetuity?
Oh my goodness, that is a very good question. But I would say if you're dropping me off in one spot, providing I can take my lovely wife Tabby and our dogs Cooper and Kobe with, you can drop me off in Mashatu Game Reserve and I'll happily camp there along the Majali River for the rest of my life.
Well, there we go, Mashatu, because it already feels like home. Villiers, thank you so much for joining me today. Enjoy the heat of hood spray. And when you're down at the local supermarket, say hello to all the other wildlife photographers for me. And then I look forward to catching up with you again on Safari soon.
Thank you, Toby. The pleasure was all mine. And thank you for just having me on the show and just continue the great work and all the fantastic tutoring that you guys do on your YouTube channel. You guys do an absolutely fantastic job.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That was not paid for. I just want to reassure everybody, but it's very complimentary. Thank you, Villiers. I'll see you soon, mate. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Pangolin Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, we'd love to hear your comments and feedback, so please leave them in the comments down below. And if you don't want to miss the next episode or any of the other wildlife photography videos that we make, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Finally, don't forget to sign up to the Pangolin Photo Safaris Friday Focus newsletter. You can do that by heading over to pangolinphoto.com, or you can scan the QR code on your screen now. I look forward to seeing you on a Pangolin Photo Safari soon, and all that's left for me to say is that the Pangolin Podcast was hosted by me, Toby Jermyn, and produced and edited by Bella Falk. Thank you.